believe it, but the first thing I thought about Ronnie is, why does she dress so cool, and how do I be like her when I grow up?
I'm in sweats, girl.
Not right now. Okay, hi everyone, I'm Tiffany. I work at Shepherd's Door, which is how I got to know Ronnie and how I know Amanda and Cheryl. But I have a story. I'm someone who identifies as being a person in recovery. I was a heroin addict. I am a new creation myself. I am a believer as well. So my story of entering into the world, I was born on Christmas Day, 1979. So how that worked out was my mom was 19 years old and pregnant with me. She was urged by my family on Christmas Eve to have a glass of wine. It won't hurt you. Apparently I was like, heck no, I'm coming out. And so bang, 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 I decided it was time for my mom to go into labor on Christmas Eve. So like any hillbilly family, my grandpa threw our Christmas tree in the back of his truck and drove my whole family down to the hospital, this little rinky-dink hospital in Milwaukee, posted the Christmas tree up, and everyone continued to have Christmas Eve while waiting for my arrival. My uncle and my grandpa got kicked out for flirting with the nurses, and at 2:42 in the morning, I came into the world. And for the first 2 years of my life, it was me and my mom and my dad. My dad was 20 years old when I was born. My mom was 19. They were babies when they were having babies, but it was great. The three of us were, a little family unit. I was so in love with my parents. I can remember like my very first memories of it just being like the three of us and being very happy. My brother Kyle joined us when I was 2. And then my parents divorced when I was 4. So I was really young. My dad was the star basketball player in this little tiny town, and my mom was the head cheerleader, and they were just kind of like, there was no other options for them but to be together, and it just wasn't the right fit. My mom ended up divorcing my dad after he had gambled away our rent money for the 14th time or something along those lines. So it was a really traumatic time for me. My mom remarried pretty quickly after that to a very militant man. She herself went the route of being a cop, and so she worked at a jail, met my stepdad. My stepdad was on the SWAT team and just extremely militant, didn't want kids, but married a woman with 2 kids, and so that meant my brother and I got a lot of initial verbal abuse, and then it turned into physical abuse. My mom and my stepdad had a child, my little brother Andrew, and all of a sudden, Lyle, the stepdad, wanted to have kids, and so he was very good and attentive dad to my brother Andrew, but still very abusive to my brother Kyle and I. My brother Kyle noticed at a young age that he was, hurting me, and so my brother would step in, and he would be a distraction, and so that I wouldn't get hurt, and my brother would take the beating for me, and it happened continuously until when my brother was 8 years old, he ran away and went to go live with my biological father. So all of that to be said, chaos at the house at a very young age. My mom at this point was working the equivalent of 2 jobs. She was doing detective work. She was also still working in the jail and being a patrol officer. My stepdad was gone all the time, so that left me to parent my little brother. And I knew from a young age I wanted to be a mom, so this was easy for me, but then I always thought, like, if I could just be a better kid for my mom, if I could just keep the house clean, she wouldn't be so stressed out, and then maybe she would like forgive my dad. Like, the math is just crazy as I'm saying it, but I learned this perfectionism behavior at a very young age, and my external family, my extended family, didn't help that because we were all very competitive. So when it came time for like holidays, it wasn't about like the familial bonding that we all just could be real with each other. It was who has the smartest kid, who has the best vacations this year, who has the nicest house. And as a child, I learned that you couldn't even get acknowledged in my family unless you were achieving. And so I learned this pattern of behavior of, if I do more and produce more, then I'll be loved, or acknowledged at least. So that sets me up for a lot going on later on down the road. At age 16, I had taken enough of my stepdad's abuse, and so I moved out as well, and with my dad and my brother, and it was actually a really fun time. My dad was a giant child, and so but like a really fun-loving guy, big personality. Everyone in the small town that we lived in knew Kurt, and we couldn't go to the grocery store without him saying hi to like 30 people or out to eat or anything. It was an ordeal because he was shaking hands, kissing babies. The mayor of Malala, Oregon, I'll just say that. So when I moved in with my dad and my brother, I continued that pattern of being the parents to the point where my dad, who was just a stunted man-child, would like just hand me his paycheck, and I would walk down and pay our electric bill, and I would do all the grocery shopping. And I'm 16 years old, but I'm more of an adult than he was, and so this is a pattern again throughout my life. And then I decided when it was time to graduate high school that I was going to get as far away from Oregon as I possibly could. So I went to Pittsburgh. I went to college at the University of Pittsburgh. They had the third best nursing school, and I thought I wanted to be a nurse growing up, and so I picked that nursing school. I also went for a boy, so it wasn't like I was making the super smart decision. I followed a boy to Pittsburgh. That's really what happened. When I was in Pittsburgh, I was, I was working and I was going to school. I ended up graduating with my degree in business. I did that completely debt-free by working my tail off. And when it came time to graduate, this person who I had been with, this boy who I had been with, disclosed to me that he was married with a child. And so this was all news to me. My heart was broken. I came back to Portland with my tail between my legs and was very quickly introduced to who was my first husband. His name was Heath. Heath is this mountain of a man, 6'11", plays basketball, of course, big shock. And he was the nicest person. He had a very kind heart and a very gentle soul. And I knew very quickly that he was not going to hurt me like the first man. So we were about a month into dating, and he says to me, I really like you, and I would like to continue this, but I have to go to China to play basketball. However, if we get married, you can come with me. And I was like, let's go. So we very quickly and sneakily got married, and off to China I went. And again, just making these like really rash decisions about relationships, because this is what was modeled for me as a child. I missed all of the opportunities to have a childhood because I just had to grow up so fast, and so I didn't know any better looking back now. So we went to China for year 1, came back home. Season 2 rolls around, we were in Spain, lovely, highly recommend. And then season 3 rolls around and we went to France. And while we were in France, I got pregnant with my perfectly amazing son, Callan, who is now 17. While there, I said to him, like, I don't want to have a child away from the States, and so we came back home. And I remember sitting at my mom's dining room table, and we're looking at each other, and I'm pregnant at this point, and it was like, oh man, we don't even know each other. It was like that realization. We had been married for 3 years, but it was like, now what do we do? We're real adults, and we have to like bring a child into the world. And it was a very pivotal moment in our marriage, because what essentially had happened is I had married one of my best friends, and we were very good friends, but we were not meant to be married. So my son is born. We are doing all the things that you're supposed to do as an adult. We bought a house. I am working in finance. Life looks great from the outside looking in. And then my dad passed away very suddenly. What had happened was he was struggling with meth. No one knew about it really. About 8 months prior, he had called me out of the blue, yelling at me about how I owed him some money. I asked him very straight up, like, what's going on with you? He answered that he was struggling with a meth addiction. And in that moment, I told him, until you can get your stuff together, I can't be in your life. I need to emotionally protect myself, and so I'm gonna tell you, until you can get your life together, like, do not contact me anymore. I hung up the phone, and that was the last thing I said to my dad. He died 8 months later. He had a meth-induced heart attack while he was playing basketball. He died in front of 100 people. They all watched him do it. And thankfully I was not there, but I remember getting the call that he had died, and something like a light switch just flipped off in me, because my dad was not only my dad, I was a daddy's girl, but he was just like my everything, my whole world. And I felt the darkness just set over me when I heard that he had passed away. Shortly thereafter, I broke my leg at a pumpkin patch. Don't ask me how, it just happened. But it was such a devastating leg break that I had to be rushed to the hospital and have emergency surgery, because I was bleeding internally, and so I know it was bad. So they had to put a rod and 7 screws in my left leg. I was in such emotional pain that when I woke up from the surgery, I felt great. I was on high levels of Dilaudid. Turns out the surgeon who did the surgery was a family friend of ours. So he was like, I'm gonna keep you comfortable. And that relationship carried on for about 6 months of me going to see him for my checkups and him handing me more and more Dilaudid. So my very first drug dealer was my doctor. And then again, very shortly thereafter that, my younger brother, my middle brother, he died of a heroin overdose on Super Bowl Sunday. So the 2 most important men in my life are now gone, and I didn't know how to cope. And so I'm getting all of these pain pills, and I'm going on this spiral, this death spiral. At this point, I have divorced Callan's dad, and I'm remarried to my high school sweetheart, who then takes over the role of my drug dealer because he works in an industry where it's very prevalent. And when I called him and told him that my doctor had cut me off, there was no taper plan, hey, I think you need help. I'm noticing a pattern of addiction here. One day I went into my doctor's appointment for my usual visit. He said, I think you have a problem, we're done here, and that was it. This was in the height of the OxyContin Purdue Pharma push, and so I'm a part of the class action lawsuit that's happening now against the family, the Sackler family. For that exact reason, he was being paid by the pharmacy, big pharma, to push this on me. And I didn't know anything about addiction, so I was like, well, a doctor's giving it to me, must be fine. And I was already well into my addiction at that point, so I called my then husband and told him, hey, this doctor says I'm addicted, can you believe this? And my husband at the time says, instead of saying well, maybe he's right, maybe we should look into getting you help, he said, I know a guy. And that's how that happened. So while I'm still working in finance, I'm making good money, I'm a functioning addict, I find out that this whole time my husband has an addiction himself, and down we went. We took each other out, and we were spending at our highest $10,000 a month on pills. We had a house and cars, and we lost it all, and it ended up where we were living in a dilapidated shack in the back 40 of his dad's property that was not meant for any habitation, specifically humans. I had lost custody of my son at this point. I had willingly signed it over to his dad, and we had a child together, my second husband. Their name is Aiden, and they had a front row seat to the worst of the worst, to all of the drug abuse for sure. We were letting them miss school so much that they had missed 50 days of school before Christmas break on their first grade year. DHS got involved, and at that point they had already been watching their dad beat me pretty profusely. There had been several occasions that they had walked in on a lot of really horrific beatings, and it got so bad that I was trying to figure out how to just survive, and I was so tired of just feeling crazy. The drugs were making me so crazy that I had attempted to take my own life. It didn't work, and I ended up going back after being taken to Unity Hospital. They released me back to my abusive husband, where another beating ensued, and the cops were called at that point because someone witnessed it. So the cops show up, and they ask me, hey, do you want to press charges? And of course I knew if I pressed charges against my husband, it was going to be worse for me. So I said no. And they said, well, hey, actually you have a warrant, so you're going to jail, after I just, gotten beaten in front of my child again. So they took my child, they took me to jail, and little did I know that my mom and my auntie, who at this point, I had been completely isolated from my entire family, so I hadn't been talking to them for years at that point. they had found out I had gone to jail, and they took it as their opportunity to get me help. And so they had arranged for me to be picked up out of jail and taken to my mom's beach house in Astoria, which is like completely out of the way. I didn't know anybody out there. I wasn't getting any drugs out in Astoria, Oregon, where my mom locked me in her bathroom, and I detoxed on her bathroom floor for 12 days off heroin. And it was the worst. Oh, I mean, I'm sure you can imagine. I had made a decision pretty early on that I didn't want to do any medically assisted treatment. If I was gonna do this, I was just gonna get it over with. So I did. And when that was happening, my aunt and my mom found me treatment, and I wasn't looking for anything specific, but they found me a faith-based treatment program called Union Gospel Mission, and it was 15 months of really intense treatment. So I go into Union Gospel Mission, and I'm, putting my finger in the air, and I'm like, I'll do the treatment, but you're not going to get me to believe in Jesus, and you're not going to get me to divorce my husband. That was on March 12th of 2019. That Easter I was baptized, and that March I filed for divorce with my husband. So they, knew that Jesus was going to get his hooks in me, and that they didn't have to say anything. They were like, okay, honey, whatever. Yeah. So, treatment was just like such a great experience for me. It felt like college all over again. I was learning how to, heal. And for me, the faith component plus the recovery that I was learning was just the magic for me. So after I graduated treatment, COVID was in full swing, but I knew that there was a calling on my life more so than just being clean and then doing life again. The thing I want to talk about that is so important though is I was how I got to the point where I accepted Jesus is the first weekend post entering treatment. I'm sitting at the Virgin Foursquare Church, who at that time was led by Pastor Keith Jenkins. He's still now, but he was out there at that point. And he was preaching the gospel of, it was Jacob, Leah, and Rachel. And so he's talking about how, Leah and Rachel were basically both in love with Jacob, and how their dad had tricked Jacob into marrying the daughter that he actually didn't love. And so she was just like doing whatever she could to just make her husband love her, even though knowing he was in love with her sister the whole time. And finally, she decided to, stop literally bending over backwards for a man and to give her life to Jesus. And that's how she ended up getting all of her, finding her real relationship and getting all of her actual needs met and feeling what it felt like to be loved for the first time. And he kept walking over to where I was sitting. I was like fourth row, like off side of the stage. And he was like, there's somebody in this section right here who needs to hear it. It was me. So I was my first like, okay, I get it, God. But I recognized after I graduated treatment that there was a calling on my life. I have the gift of like type A big personality. I got it from my dad. And so I knew that I wanted to be the person who I wanted to give back and see if there was a way that if one family could not have to worry about their daughter the way that my family had to worry about me, or if one woman could potentially get help and not have to suffer without their children the way I had to, then it was all going to be worth it. So I started working in the field when I found a scholarship that was for people who wanted to pursue their CADC and also get their degree in addiction studies simultaneously. I found it 2 years ago, and I'm happy to say that I completed and graduated on Friday. So I graduated college again, but this time doing something I love. My first degree was business. I'm like, oh, whatever, but this is actually like my passion. And I get to use that toward helping other women and children who don't have to suffer the way that I had to. So I have more stuff I want to talk about. It's on page 2 here. But the other thing is that has been a big passion of mine is physical fitness and like the correlation of like physical health and mental health and how that can help. Like when you start to set goals physically and then reach them, it helps to set these patterns in your brain for like long-term recovery as well. So I've been a big champion of that too. I know that at the treatment center I work at now, we do a lot of those like types of physical runs, and I love it so much. It's taught me so much. So I'm very blessed to be a part of that. But I worked at a secular recovery program for a recovery entity for a very long time, and it was fine, but it was very much like in Chinatown, in this like in the darkness. It felt like I was having to like walk over, use needles, getting into work, and it was just very dark, and I never felt like it was home for me. And then when I got to get to work at Shepherd's Door, it is so much fun there, but it's because I get to show people like the love and light of Jesus. I bring in all kinds of different community partners, and I just walk them around. I don't have to say anything. I just walk them around and show them our program, and they can feel it. I've had so many people say like, I'm not even a believer, but my grandma used to tell me that when you get goosebumps on your arms, that's actually Jesus. And I feel the goosebumps when I'm at Shepherd's Door. And I was like, yep, that's accurate. So, doing my job is not really a job. It's just bringing in other people. Hey, like, we're getting all healthy over here, and we're going to live our very best life and come along for the ride. And it just really sells itself. So that's kind of it for me. I don't know if anyone has any questions. But I feel like I talked